Hi everyone, and welcome to the Cyberpulse podcast. It's been a minute actually. Today's episode is about identity theft, but specifically identity theft through stolen information. When people hear identity theft, they usually think about stolen money or fraud transactions. What often gets missed is that none of that happens without information being stolen quietly, gradually, and sometimes without anyone noticing. So today we're focusing on how identity information gets stolen, why it works, and why it often goes unnoticed until much later. So hi everyone and welcome back to the Cyber Pulse podcast. I have Abdullah Adam with me today. Abdullah, I know who you are and I know what you do, but I want to give you the chance to please do me the honors and introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi everyone, my name is Abdullah Adam. I'm a software engineer with focus on fraud detection. I work for a company called Data Solutions here in Doha, Qatar. We help payment service providers in detecting and managing fraud, basically to help and protect revenue. Thank you.
So Abdullah, let's start off easy. When people hear identity theft, they usually associate it with stolen money. And that's fine from my knowledge. So from your experience, how much of identity theft actually starts with information theft long before any financial activity happens?
Identity theft refers to someone stealing your identification in terms of who you are online, not in real world, obviously, right? I mean, it could happen in real life, but generally speaking, we're talking about online or digital world.
True.
So it's basically not being you, someone taking your identity to do an action or carry out an action that you did not authorize pretending to be you. It's basically, let's say, for example, you have an account online, right? So your identity is linked to that account, right?
True.
Now, your own account, if someone uses your account, the service provider thinks that it's you, for example, but it's not you. It could be your child. It could be someone else who has access to that account. You might have even allowed them to use your account to carry out certain actions like your kids, for example. However, it's not you who did that action. And that's where identity theft kind of creeps up. It could be a fraudster. It could be a child. It could be anybody that is not you.
Interesting perspective. Abdullah, can you give me a scenario or a case where you noticed things like this and then it took people time to report it or to adjust to what happened or what they witnessed?
I have certain scenarios where kids, right? So parents would leave their phones around at home and not monitor them, much let their kids watch videos and stuff. But kids are smart. So nowadays, some kids, what they would do is they would use their parents' phone to buy credit for their digital currency, basically, for games they play online. And then they do this without the parents' consent. Yeah, absolutely. It happens. Now, the funny thing is these kids are pretty smart. So what they would do is the bank would send an SMS notification to go like, hey, this amount got deducted from your credit card or your debit card.
Yeah.
And the kid would simply just delete that SMS and pretend nothing happens. So we had cases with we're talking 6-digit numbers, right? And then the parent would notice, but it would be too late. And then it's really hard to dispute. Yeah, it really happens. Now, there were other situations. I wouldn't consider this as identity theft per se, but there were cases, they call this friendly fraud kind of in a way. Like you get the thing and then you pretend you didn't get the thing. Where a kid also ordered some top-up cards from one of the stores in Doha, and then it got delivered to him. So when it got delivered to him, he just took pictures of the card and went okay, he got access basically to the code, right? The little scratch code. And then told the boat driver, hey, okay, I don't need this product. It's not what I want. So the driver went back to the store and goes the customer is not interested in the product. However, the product has been used, right? Because the card is gone, the number is gone.
That is so sneaky. How do you think parents or stores can protect themselves from things like that? And why do you think people mix this with the identity fraud? Is it the same? Or do you think there's just not enough awareness about such topics?
As you said, it's a good point. So awareness, something that is required. Awareness is what helps us identify what is right and what is wrong, what should have happened, what not, protocols, etc. So if that driver, for example, knows knows how to handle the protocol, then it would kind of make sense, for example. However, when it comes to fraudsters, right? So there are those small-time fraudsters that will try stuff, try and get away with stuff. And then you have people who commit fraud on an industrial scale. We're talking offices, we're talking multiple people, professionals, right?
Yeah.
And those guys, I can describe them as basically they are parasites, right? So what they do is they reverse engineer the trust model. What I mean by this is, let's say, for example, you're a bank and you have a trust model, right? So you trust people based on certain behavior, certain flow, certain transactions, certain way of doing transactions. These guys are basically chameleons. So what they do is they will reverse engineer, they will understand the trust model. How do you trust people? And then they abuse that. So let's say, for example, I'll give you an example.
Go ahead, please.
Now, some of them would do something called trust farming. You know what trust farming is? He will join the platform. He will use a card to do a very small transaction, sometimes even to McDonald's. I'm not even joking, right? So something really small. And then you'll be like, okay, a customer is using an international card, doing small transaction. No problem. That's fine. But then what they're doing is they are building trust, right? He'll wait for a while and then he'll do another small transaction. What he's doing is he's creating a small history, right? I'm a normal person buying something and everything is fine and dandy. Now, when
But
they are ready,
he's tricking both of you. He's tricking whoever is monitoring it, and he's tricking the customer too.
Correct, because what they would do is the amount is so small. You know, Alhamdulillah, Qatar is a blessed country, right? People have money.
Yes.
So you wouldn't care much when you see a transaction for 20 riyals to McDonald's. People might go like, oh, it might be my son who ordered something. It might be this, it might be that, right? They wouldn't chase after it.
But then here's the thing. If they don't chase after it, does that make it okay?
That would be a gray area. Okay, put it this way. One thing that is difficult in Doha is that when you would do a transaction online, right? It shows up under different names. So what I mean is, let's say, for example, you will buy a product from store X.
Okay.
And then your SMS will say you have purchased and the person who you purchased from is Y company, for example, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't recognize your own transaction at times. You'll be like, why I bought from this store, but the transaction is showing under a different name, right? And some people would panic and they'll call their banks and go like, hey, I didn't buy from this store. But then they will realize that, oh, it's the store they bought from, but they got charged under a different name, for example, right? So those kind of things happen. And that kind of makes it hard to trace stuff. So let's say, for example, you'll buy something, but then you'll see charge under a different name in your bank statement. So that makes it kind of difficult. I'm not sure what's the best way to handle this, but it happens.
But for me, to be honest, I feel like culture-wise, people would make small amounts go unnoticed and somehow like they'll make this okay. But in reality, it's not okay because we're kind of helping scammers scam us even more. Do you know what I mean? Because we're not doing our due diligence. In reality, this is our money, and I'm not saying that out of greed. I'm saying that because it's our right. We have the right to spend it the way that we want to. And no one has the right to scam us. So culture-wise, do you think people should protect themselves more when it comes to situations like this, or do you think it's okay for us to continue doing what we do?
I agree with you, because at the end of the day, being money smart is really important, right? Because eventually what would happen is when people don't notice those small transactions, they get hit really hard. They get hurt the most because what would happen is they establish trust with the merchant using their card, right? And they don't know the card has been used. And the merchant would trust them, and the bank would be kind of okay because, okay, this person did transactions before, right?
Yes.
So when they get hit hard. I'm talking thousands of riyals. So it's like D-Day basically. There will be a day where they suddenly start purchasing with very large amounts, and what they would purchase are things that they can redeem right away. It went to the extent where they would basically get mobile phones delivered to their hotels, right? So those scammers would be in the country. Sometimes they'll come to the country, deliver phones to hotels, right? And then there you go. You're done within 30 minutes. If you can't stop it, it's gone. Now, it becomes really hard to talk to the bank or convince them to get the money back, initiate a successful chargeback, because the bank goes, hey, you had a history with this merchant. You've been buying from him all this time and you never reported it all this time, etc. You know what I mean? It becomes really hard to dispute, basically.
In cases like this, do you think there is someone in the wrong here, or there is no blame game because the banks normalized it and the customer didn't report it. Do you think there should be due diligence from both ends, or is what we're doing right now okay?
Banks in Doha spend a lot of resources on protecting customers, right? So from what I've seen, banks have entire departments on trying to protect their customers from those frauds.
Exactly. They
However,
have customer fraud, things like that. So why aren't people reporting it? Why is there a fear in doing something like this? Even if it's a small
not
amount.
fair. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's not fair. I think it's more of like the people are, the lifestyle in Doha is a bit on the hectic side. So everyone is busy, right? Inside the entire day, you just keep on doing stuff here and there. Then when you see a little 10 real transaction, 5 real transaction, you just go like, hey, it's nothing, right? You just let it go. It's the lifestyle kind of getting them to like get easy and not realize that this is happening until they get bitten, basically.
Okay, so you don't think it's fair. You think it's something related to the lifestyle. The way that I'd word this is I'd say it's something related to the culture in terms of, okay, this is a small amount. I'm gonna be embarrassed if I report it. It's like this sense of embarrassment. No, just don't do it. It's a small amount, let it go. But then the point that I'm trying to raise, I'm gonna let it go once, twice. The third time, it's not gonna be 5 real. It might be 50,000. What am I gonna do then?
Absolutely. Those scammers, what they do is they basically hit you so hard and then they kind of disappear for a while. So let's say, for example, when they do something successful, right? So they made off with a lot of money. They'll just lay low for a while. They've made basically a couple months' salaries in one day or in a couple hours, and then they'll just disappear. You'll never hear from them for a while, and then they'll come back. That's why they come in waves, right? If people who are familiar with these transactions, they will see it. Fraud happens in waves. It's like there will be a wave. Let's say, for example, during World Cup, there was a big wave, right?
Yes.
Because they know a lot of international customers are coming to the country. So it becomes easier to blend those international cards, right? Sometimes what they would do is they will even match the IP addresses. So let's say, for example, cards from the UK were bought online. What they will do is they will use British IP addresses in the UK, right, on UK stores to blend more rather than being like sticking out. So let's say, for example, if I get a card from China and use it in Qatar, I will stick out a bit more. It might be fraud, it might not be fraud, but I will stick out.
Yes.
But if it's the same as the country, etc., it becomes kind of harder, and that's what they do.
They make it hard to detect that they're scamming people.
They have patience and a spreadsheet, and they keep on going, hoping people don't realize.
But the thing is, I feel like sometimes people think that they're the only ones who are being targeted, when in reality they do that in volumes. So it might not work for one person, but it might work for 10 others. They target randomly, but they know what they're doing. They're not targeting one specific person. Do you know what I mean?
Correct. So what they are aiming for is whales. They have a definition for whales. A whale is a person with a lot of money in their card and is not a careful person, right? He doesn't care about those transactions. He doesn't report it. So they will do little transactions, and if they notice that, okay, this person doesn't care about reporting, then they will be aiming at like hitting him really hard, right? And they are ruthless. Like they would go all the way. So they will aim for transactions, let's say, for example, 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning, because they know the person is asleep at that time, right?
Yes.
There's a high probability, let's say, if he's not an owl. And they will aim and bank on the fact that you will not wake up, look at your phone and report it right away. So that's some of the techniques they would use to try and run away, because by the time you would wake up, the damage has been done, basically.
So in your own understanding or in your own perspective, how do you think people could protect themselves from such things? And where does awareness step in terms of company perspectives or bank perspectives, and in terms of regular users' perspective?
When it comes to the banks, from my side, I believe they are doing more than enough. Not a day passes by without you receiving an SMS, probably, of them warning you not to click on fraud links, blah, blah, etc., and emails, whatever, trying to warn you, right?
Yes.
But when it comes to customers, what I would really recommend is use technology. What I mean by technology is try and use virtual cards. So virtual cards are cards where you can put in a certain amount or put in a certain limit.
Yes.
So you would reduce the blast radius from a fraud happening, because let's say, for example, there's a website that doesn't seem really safe, but you really had to use it. You would use your virtual card in there with a small amount.
Yeah.
So if, let's say, that got compromised, the blast radius is contained there, right? You're not affected. When it comes to scam, this might be slightly off topic, but this is from a personal experience. A friend of mine, he joined a company, right?
Yeah.
Now, what happened is a person impersonated the identity of the CEO of that company.
Wow.
So what they do is those scammers are waiting online. You know how people, when they join a company, they're happy. They go like, hey, I'm happy to share that I've joined company X, for example. So what the scammers do, they call it the LinkedIn scam or LinkedIn boss scam, whatever. It has multiple names. So what they would do is they will see that, okay, this person has joined a company. Let me see who's the CEO of this company. They get the information of the CEO of the company, create a WhatsApp account with the CEO information, etc., and then send a message to that person. Go like, hey, I'm having an important meeting. Can you do this for me quick? And then there you go. I don't want to get too much into details, but and the person just joined the company, right? So they'll be like, oh, the CEO wants me to do something. He's busy, and they would do it. They wouldn't even think about it.
Like why? For me, like I know sometimes this is difficult, but sometimes before we act on something, we just need to sit and think for a second, just a second. Why would a CEO talk to me on my first day? It doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And to make it funny, like the coincidence was on that day, the CEO actually had an important meeting.
Wow.
So it's like, what are the chances? So what people say is, I had a professor who would always say, whenever you receive an email or an SMS or whatever it is, right? 60-second rule. You never act. For 60 seconds, you look who sent the thing, double check facts, double check what you're doing, and make it a habit.
Exactly. That's all you need for common sense to step in. That's all you need. 60 seconds. So, Abdullah, is there anything else you'd like to say about today's episode, or any type of advice you'd like to give to our listeners when it comes to fraud in general?
Fraud is an evolving field, and fraudsters are becoming smarter every day. A technique that was working yesterday might not work tomorrow, but these guys always come up with something new. It's important to keep up good habits. I know it's easy to basically give access to everyone around us and do things thinking, hey, we're safe. Make it a habit to protect yourself more. Try and invest in technology. What I mean by invest is cybersecurity. Protect yourself. Get your antivirus on your phone. Do not open attachments that you don't know where they're coming from. And more importantly, think before you act, because those few seconds could really cost you a lot of money in the future.
Thank you for that, Abdullah. Last question. Is there someone you'd like to recommend for a future Cyber Pulse episode? Someone with real experience when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yuri Kramus would be a perfect fit for this.
Yuri. I knew Yuri. But now let's see if I can actually get him or not. That's gonna be a challenge, but let's see. Inshallah. But if I get Yuri, then it's gonna be interesting for me, to be honest.
Yeah, the guy who knows his stuff. He really knows what's happening. So I believe you'll bring good insight. But I'm not sure what kind of topic you'll be interested in.
To be honest, Yuri can talk about a lot of topics when it comes to cybersecurity. So let's see. Thank you for doing this, though. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you actually enjoyed the discussion and that you found this insightful. Identity theft doesn't start with money, it starts with information, and understanding that is key to preventing it. To everyone listening, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for listening to the Cyber Pulse podcast. Hopefully, I'll see you in the next episode.